Before we begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel because stories like this remind us that one moment of courage can change a life forever. And trust me, by the end of this story, you'll understand why the entire audience was in tears, why the judges sat speechless, and why Simon Cowell himself struggled to find words after witnessing something no one expected. Stay until the very end, because what happened on that stage became one of the most unforgettable moments anyone had ever seen. The lights inside the America's Got Talent theater glowed brightly as thousands of excited fans filled the audience. People chatted, laughed, and waited for the next contestant to walk onto the famous stage. The judges were already seated. Simon Cowell looked calm but serious as usual. Sofia Vergara smiled at the crowd. Heidi Klum adjusted her microphone. Howie Mandel glanced through his notes. It seemed like a normal audition day. Then the announcer called the next performer. A young man stepped onto the stage. At first glance, there was nothing flashy about him. He wasn't wearing a sparkling costume. There were no backup dancers. No dramatic special effects. Just a simple black jacket, dark jeans, and a nervous smile. His name was Miguel Santos, a 27-year-old singer from a small town in the Philippines. The audience applauded politely. Simon leaned forward. "So Miguel, tell us a little about yourself." Miguel took a deep breath. "My family and I grew up very poor," he said. "My father worked as a fisherman. My mother sold food in the market. Music was the only thing that made us forget our struggles." The audience listened carefully. Miguel continued. "When I was a child, my grandfather introduced me to Elvis Presley. Every night he would play old records. We didn't have much, but those songs made us dream." The crowd smiled. Simon nodded. "And why America's Got Talent?" Miguel's eyes suddenly became emotional. "Because my grandfather passed away 2 years ago. Before he died, he told me something I'll never forget. He said, 'One day, the world will hear your voice.'" The theater became silent. Miguel looked up toward the ceiling lights. "Tonight, I'm singing for him." The audience applauded warmly. Simon smiled politely. "Good luck." Miguel walked to the center of the stage. The music started. The first few notes sounded familiar. People immediately recognized it as an Elvis Presley classic. Some audience members exchanged looks. Another Elvis impersonator. America's Got Talent had seen many before. Even Simon's expression suggested he wasn't expecting anything extraordinary. Miguel opened his mouth and sang. The first 10 seconds were good. Not bad. But not incredible. Simon remained expressionless. Then something unexpected happened. Miguel closed his eyes. For a moment, it felt as though he wasn't trying to imitate Elvis anymore. He was becoming himself. His voice suddenly transformed. The emotion pouring out of every lyric felt genuine and raw. The audience straightened in their seats. The judges looked at each other. What had just happened? Miguel wasn't performing. He was telling a story through music. Every note carried memories. Every word carried pain. Every phrase carried hope. The atmosphere inside the theater completely changed. People who had been casually watching now stared at the stage without blinking. Miguel's confidence grew. The nervous young man from the Philippines disappeared. In his place stood a performer capable of captivating an entire arena. Then came the chorus. And everything exploded. His voice soared through the theater with astonishing power. The audience gasped. Heidi's jaw literally dropped. Sofia covered her mouth. Howie shook his head in disbelief. Even Simon's eyes widened. Nobody expected this. Not from him. Not after those first few seconds. Miguel delivered each note with precision and passion. The crowd erupted into applause before the song even ended. Some people stood up. Then more stood. Within seconds, the entire theater was on its feet. A standing ovation in the middle of the performance. Something almost unheard of. Miguel noticed it. His eyes became watery. But he kept singing. His voice grew even stronger. The audience clapped along. The energy inside the room became electric. Yet what happened next was even more powerful. As the final section approached, the background screen suddenly displayed a photograph. An elderly Filipino man smiling proudly. Miguel's grandfather. The audience immediately understood. The theater fell silent again. Miguel looked at the image. For a moment his voice trembled. Tears filled his eyes. Anyone else might have broken down. Anyone else might have stopped singing. But Miguel continued. His grandfather's dream was standing right in front of him. And he wasn't going to let fear take that away. The final note arrived. Miguel held it. Longer. Longer. Even longer. The note seemed impossible. The audience couldn't believe what they were hearing. When he finally finished, the theater exploded. People screamed. People cheered. People cried. The standing ovation became even louder. Miguel lowered his head and burst into tears. Years of sacrifice. Years of rejection. Years of struggle. All released in one moment. The judges stood up. Every single one of them. Simon remained frozen. For once, the man famous for criticism appeared speechless. The applause continued for nearly a full minute. Miguel wiped away tears and looked toward the judges. He was shaking. Not because he was afraid, but because he knew something extraordinary had just happened. Eventually Simon leaned toward his microphone. But no words came out. The audience laughed softly. Simon looked emotional. He tried again. Still nothing. For one of the rare times in his career, Simon Cowell genuinely struggled to speak. Finally he managed to say, "Wow." The crowd erupted again. Simon looked at Miguel. "You know, when you started singing, I thought I knew exactly where this audition was going." The audience laughed. Simon smiled. So did everyone else. Miguel nodded. But then something happened. You stopped trying to be Elvis. Simon pointed toward him. You became Miguel. The audience cheered loudly. Simon continued. And that's when everything changed. Miguel wiped away more tears. Heidi spoke next. I've seen thousands of auditions. But what touched me wasn't just your voice. She paused. It was your heart. The audience applauded. Sophia nodded. I felt every word. Every emotion. I don't even know your grandfather, but now I feel like I do. Miguel smiled through tears. Howie leaned forward. This wasn't an impersonation. He pointed toward the stage. This was a tribute. And it was beautiful. The audience roared. Miguel looked overwhelmed. Then Simon asked a question. Can I ask you something? Yes, sir. If your grandfather could see you right now, what would you say to him? The theater became silent again. Miguel stared toward the giant photograph behind him. His voice cracked. I'd say. He paused. The tears returned. I hope I made you proud. The audience immediately broke down. People wiped their eyes. Even some crew members backstage became emotional. Miguel looked up. I spent years wondering if I was good enough. His voice shook. I spent years working jobs I didn't love because my family needed help. The audience listened carefully. There were nights when I wanted to quit. He paused. But every time I felt like giving up, I remembered my grandfather's words. Tears streamed down his face. He believed in me before I believed in myself. The crowd erupted into applause. Simon lowered his head for a moment. Clearly emotional. Then something incredible happened. Simon reached for the golden buzzer. The audience gasped. Miguel looked confused. His eyes widened. Simon smiled. I think your grandfather was right. And then he pressed it. Golden confetti exploded across the theater. The audience screamed louder than ever before. Miguel fell to his knees. He covered his face and cried. The golden confetti rained down around him. The judges rushed onto the stage. The crowd continued cheering. Miguel stood up and looked toward the photograph of his grandfather. For a brief moment, it felt as if the entire world disappeared. There was only him. His dream. And the promise he had finally fulfilled. Millions of viewers later watched the audition online. The performance spread across social media. People from every corner of the world shared it. Not because it was perfect. Not because it was flashy. But because it was real. People connected with Miguel's story. His struggles. His determination. His love for family. His refusal to give up. The audition became a symbol of hope for anyone chasing a dream that seemed impossible. Months later, interviews asked Miguel what the secret to his success was. His answer never changed. He always smiled and said, "Someone believed in me." And perhaps that's the lesson hidden inside this unforgettable story. Sometimes success begins long before the spotlight. It begins when a parent sacrifices for their child. When a teacher offers encouragement. When a friend refuses to let us quit. When a grandparent whispers words of hope that stay with us forever. Many people never achieve their dreams because they stop one step before the breakthrough. They allow fear to convince them they aren't ready. They allow failure to convince them they aren't worthy. But Miguel's journey proves something powerful. You do not need to be born into success. You do not need perfect circumstances. You do not need everyone to believe in you. Sometimes all it takes is one person who sees your potential and the courage to keep moving forward until you finally see it too. So if you're watching this right now and there's a dream you've been holding on to, don't give up. The world may not notice your effort today. People may doubt you. You may even doubt why.